Brock Meyer. I want to encourage you with this message today on the importance and the power of prayer. If you've paid attention at all these last couple weeks, what's going on in our country is hard to put into words. It's wild, especially what's going on in our country at Washington, D.C. We currently have 25,000 troops in D.C. They called in the National Guard to bring in extra protection. Compare that 25,000 to what we are doing in Iraq with only 2,500. It's blowing my mind on the amount of national security that we're bringing in because of the suspicion of attacks that could be taking place. I don't know about you, but these are times that can bring some unrest if we give more attention to the news feeds than we do to the power of God. And I've really been wanting to focus in on the presence, the power, and through prayer on Jesus. One of the books that's a staple in church history is The Complete Works on Prayer from E.M. Bounds. And E.M. Bounds is just one of the heavy hitters in faith history when it comes to the importance of prayer. He says this, he says that faith is an atmosphere, or that faith is even increased and created in an atmosphere of prayer. And the more that we engage the heart of God and the presence of God and coming before Him, making our pleas known to Him, we believe that God will respond to prayers like that. Recently, I saw a video of not just what's going on outside the White House, but what's going on inside the White House. And they are having worship services. There's prayer that's going on inside the White House. They are creating an atmosphere and a culture. They're creating an environment of engaging the presence of the Lord. Just whenever you're about to lose faith, you can't lose hope, and they engage even more. I'll tell you, we see the scripture in Daniel chapter 6. Similar setup. We see a government where there's some pretty rough stuff that's happening. And King Darius has his governors and senators and officials, all of them gathering together. It says there was one governor who rose above all of the other ones, and his name was Daniel. It says that Daniel was so good that Darius was turning the kingdom over to him to have him run it. But the other governors around were jealous of Daniel because they wanted the spot. And so just like what you see today in America, these other people around in politics were trying to find the dirt on each other. And they said, let's find the dirt on Daniel so we can expose him. And if we can expose all of his behind the scenes dealings and all of his politics, or maybe even some of his personal sin, we can expose him and we'll get him out of here. So here's all of the scheming that's going on. And it says, as they did in-depth research on Daniel, they could find nothing wrong with him. There's just something about living a life unto the Lord that just keeps you in that spot. And so they eventually say, the only way that we can ever find anything wrong with him is we have to create an extra law that we know he will break. And that law is you cannot pray to your God. The only God that you can pray to is King Darius. And so King Darius issues this decree. And he says, no one can pray to any God or anybody except for me for the next 30 days. Daniel hears this, and as soon as he hears it, he says, this is a law I've got to break. And he goes home, he kneels down by his window that is facing Jerusalem, and he prays 3 times a day so that everyone can see him. He does civil disobedience against the government that's ungodly. When they create an ungodly, God-rejecting, blasphemous law, Daniel says, I'm not going to comply with this. Instead, I'm going to engage in prayer. He doesn't incite riots. He's not lighting the city on fire, but he is saying, my heart has to stay true to the Lord. And he engages in prayer. I think it's possible that we as a church, the American church, could experience some persecution. There's a few P words, I think, that we could be walking through, I believe, in the next months, if not just a few years away. is the church could be facing some persecution. And if we don't know who we are and we don't stay in the presence of the Lord, our faith could get rattled. And we could be coming into a volatile time in our nation's history. And especially getting our seat squeezed at the table where we might not even have a table anymore. There might be new laws saying that you have to do this. You have to fill your body up with these things. You can't worship in your church anymore. You can't gather in groups of more than 50. There's a government can be putting on regulations that's squeezing out opportunities to worship the Lord. And in those moments of persecution, Daniel goes to prayer. Also, these times of pain, because what comes after the persecution, this pain comes to where Daniel, it says, if you don't obey, then you'll be thrown into the lion's den. This time could be a painful time to where maybe we lose jobs. Maybe we lose our voice in the community. Maybe if we make a stand for Jesus, we might lose some relationships in our family. I would hate for that to happen. But please, let me tell you, don't try to just keep everybody happy in your family while losing your conviction with Jesus. Stay in your standards and keep with your convictions. The next one that goes on is King Darius. He's like, oh no, not Daniel. When he gets word back that Daniel breaks this law, because I love Daniel, he's the best, but I've got to stick with the law that I've created. And he throws Daniel into the lion's den. And it says that he had a restless night, that he couldn't hardly even get to sleep, and he stayed up all night. He wouldn't eat. He wanted no entertainment because of what was going on inside of him. And I'm just praying this prayer that any of our persecutors would have restless nights, that they would not just sleep easy and have peace while the church and people of faith go into these times of persecution or some times of pain. And so now Daniel's in this lion's den. He's like, God, where are you? Right? He doesn't say that. We don't have it recorded in Scripture, but I'm thinking, God, I've only lived my life for you. And I've done what you've asked me to do, and I've made radical stances for you. And now this is where I find myself. This close to the jaw of a lion. Perplexity is another one that can come. And Bob Sorge has a book called Pain, Perplexity, and Promotion. And this piece of perplexity, maybe you've walked through some pain. Maybe you've walked through some hardship. You're like, God, where are you? I need you. I'm praying, I'm seeking, and I'm asking. And in those times, whenever we're just left with our own thoughts and our own feelings, it can start getting dark. We can start having some really lonely and isolated thoughts. I would encourage you to shift the perspective and keep your eyes focused on a big God who's bigger than all of our problems. The next morning, King Darius runs to the stone covering the den. He says, get that stone off of there. Daniel, has your God, the God that you believe in, the all-powerful God, has he saved you? And even the persecutor turns. Man, this is the only God that can save. And Daniel shouts back, may the king live forever. I'm alive. I'm here. And they pull him out. And here he is. He has this moment with the king. And the king takes all of his other governors or all of the other guys that made this law and throws them into the pit. It says that all of their bones were crushed by the lions before they hit the ground. Let's talk about a flip of the script real quick. And in that moment, Daniel engages the presence of God is another P. So through prayer, through presence, we can get through the pain and the persecution and the perplexity of whatever we go through. I want to encourage us in this season of life, go to prayer, pray over your marriage, pray over your kids, pray for your community, for your company, for your business, pray for your country. We need a breakthrough from God. And just when we think it's heading one way, he can flip the script and he can make it go in a completely different direction. So now's the time. Let's pick up the power of prayer.